Hangovers Live. All right. Welcome, folks, to the Meta Lab, episode 5. 5? 4? 5? It's 5. We have our special guest on time for the first time ever, Jake Williams, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi.
And on with us as well, we have Mike Payne from, you guys may remember him from last week's episode. He's joined us on the team. Say hello, everybody, Mike.
Hello, everybody.
So as usual, we're going to be talking with our guests, and then we're going to open up the discussion to, talking Heroclix. We love the game, and let's talk about the game itself. But of course, we got to pander to our wonderful guest, who's graced us with the with his presence.
Oh, don't say it like that.
Well, I have to, because you're waking up a lot earlier than us. It's noon here, and it's 10 in the morning where you are, so
Yeah,
we have to be nice to you.
that's okay, though.
So just so we, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Jake's accomplishments, he's last year's Golden Age World Champion. He is the man responsible for breaking the cop cars and making the first ever watch list include the cop cars.
Yeah, I've had a few things watched listed and errata because of me, which I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, you know what? When it comes down to it, you're seeing you are what the meta is supposed to be, and it means you're paying attention, and it means the rules team is not. So let's go back to last year. When you did build your team, the cop cars, was it yourself that came up with the idea? Did you have a team of players working with you to come up with the idea, or?
For the most part, I do most of the stuff that I come up with on my own. At least last year, everything I came up with was on my own. What had happened was one of the No Man's Lands, I tracked down a couple of cop cars that I thought they'd be fun to play, and I actually played them in one of the No Man's Land events, 3 cop cars, and just decimated everybody. So I actually, being the good concerned player I was, seeing how overpowered they were, I went to Realms and posted up in the strategy forums, and I got so much flack for that post. Like, oh, you're the worst player ever. How dare you play a team like that? That's the most broken team we've ever seen. That's not strategy. And then I had one guy actually pop off to me. He's like, what, do you just think you're the best player in the world? I'm like, you know what? Screw you, buddy. I will this year with them then. And went out and actually won with them. So it was bad. I think in all 11 games last year for Worlds, I went 11-0 with the team. And I think I only lost about 700 points total in 11 games. That's a pretty good average.
Amazing.
That's nuts. Now, are you able to talk about your figure yet, or is that still on the very quiet?
I can say what it is. I designed Harley Quinn. She comes out in the Flash set. I can't talk about rarity. I can't talk about power set. I can only talk about what WizKids has actually previewed. And they showed it in the solicitation, I believe. So hopefully they should be doing a preview here showing the dial. I'm hoping in the next week or two for Flash. She's a figure I think everybody will want to play. Fan or not of the character, she's a good figure, and that's about all I can really say.
All right, cool. The pose itself, a lot of people have been like, I thought it was really cool, and I actually have pointed out on several occasions where the pose itself possibly came from. And I'm guessing at this. Is it from Arkham Origins in one of the cutscenes there?
Because they showed the pose, so I can say that. But basically, what it was is I have a lot of friends that don't play comics. In fact, I'm not really a big comic reader. I started playing this game because it was a turn-based strategy game I could play with people. And because of that game, I've learned a lot more about comics. I mean, I know a lot about characters. I'll sit down and read wiki articles. I've read a couple of comics. I'm reading Marvel Zombies right now just to kind of see what the fuss is about that I borrowed from my friend. So the game brought me to comics. But when it came down to designing a figure, I've been a big Harley Quinn fan, and I fell in love with her from the Batman games on Xbox. And the first time that we really see Harley Quinn is when she's got the warden tied up, in that pose. And so I thought, wouldn't that be cool? Because, if I said I wanted to make Dr. somebody that, that none of my friends had heard about, I said, hey, I won this world championship. It was a big deal. I got to design a figure, and I said someone that they had no idea who it was. They just kind of look at me and roll their eyes like that doesn't really mean anything to me. But when I said I could design a Harley Quinn figure, it stood out at them, and most of my friends, just like me, learned about Harley Quinn mostly through the video game, and that's kind of where it came from. So I thought, wouldn't that be a cool pose to take the video game the first time we see her and put that into a Clix form, So that's where the whole idea and everything came from. So when my friends, do see it, they'll be like, oh, hey, the video game. That's what comes to most people's mind, it seems like.
I do have to ask because a lot of champs have been doing it ever since George Masu put his photo in the figure. You're the man in the chair this time.
Yeah.
Now, I have to ask: is that WizKids suggesting that, or is that kind of like a choice that the champs have all been making, or?
I can't get too much into the specifics of
Okay.
how it is. What most people are told though is try to find a way to include yourself in the sculpt, or include yourself in it. That didn't come from WizKids proper. That just was something that was mentioned to me. I mean, if you think back about it, man, I mean, there was, getting out to one of these cons, there's a lot of people that want to go, and then you've got to qualify to get into the finals, then you've got to go through the finals, and you be one bad dice roll away, or something could actually, really hurt you. You look at Patrick's run this year; he won a couple of roll-offs getting into the finals. So there's a lot of things that could have gone wrong. I mean, I'm a pretty good player. I've had a lot of success over the years, but when I was going through the sculpt ideas that I had, it was right when crap for his sculpt because he got quite a bit of heat. It was right in that time. I remember I had second guesses for a second, like maybe I want to change my idea, But then, then it was said to me, it's like, you know what, man? What if this is the only chance? What if you don't get another chance? Why wouldn't you kick yourself forever if you didn't take that chance? Who cares if 5 or 10 people out there really hate you because of it? They can go to hell, basically, because they don't have that opportunity.
No. I've always kind of liked the way that they do it. I wish some of them were a little bit more subtle. Like Daniel's was good, George's was good. Yours fits into the model itself. But actually, both of Daniel's aren't terrible. It's just I think Alex has really stuck out as kind of awkward. Between a lot of my friends.
I talked to Alex about that too because he messaged me right when they sent it, and he actually sent me over a panel that he found. Or no, he told me about the panel, and someone else sent it over to me. It's actually a pose where he found a pose with Stargirl and Billy Bastion.
Oh.
He just replaced himself with Billy Bastion. So that's where the idea came from. So it's not like he was trying to perv on her or anything else. He found this kind of cool pose, and that's what he sent off. I mean, Alex obviously is a sculptor,
Yeah.
It's not like he sculpted it himself. He probably sent in the idea, and that's what happened. So.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Now that I know it comes from a panel, and like it seems to be a consistent thing where people are replacing themselves from within a panel. But getting off of that now, let's start talking about your. Now, a lot of people would look at it and say you didn't win again, which means you're not being successful. But your consistency this year, I would see as continued success. I mean, you still are placing very well in tournaments. The single worlds, you placed in the top 16 or 8.
I took 9th in worlds this year because I made one stupid mistake. I was playing the JLA base, and as I brought it out, actually, I left the back end as exposed. I thought it was okay. And so I thought I was in stealth, and then the guy came up and hit me. I was like, went to make the shot. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Just one of those stupid mistakes that I don't make a lot.
Yeah.
It happens, though. Otherwise I would have been that would have been a top 4 team because the next team I would have run into was Scott Lovelady's 2/10 Ironmans, and that's a pretty much auto win against the JLA base.
Absolutely, because you're not running a relic, and as a result, those characters will just die.
Exactly.
Also, in the team worlds, I believe you placed your team was second.
Yeah, we took second place in team worlds. I played with Adam, the national champion, and then my buddy John from Salt Lake, who I've been working with or playing against for the last couple of years. It's funny. John was kind of nervous going out there, but I mean, we play. He's one of the only people in Salt Lake that every time I sit down, it's not going to go in my favor. It seems like he's become a really good player, and I don't think he realized just how good he got until he got out there. And then his goal was just to bring home 2 or 3 con LAs, and he almost brought home 2 full sets because when he wasn't playing in the Worlds events with us, he was playing in Battle Royales, and he did really well out there. So it was fun to see his progression, how far he's come in the game. Because I don't think he thought that he was up to that level yet locally.
Now, in the teams, was your team once again in the Justice League, or?
No, I switched to. I'd had a concept a while back. I was trying to figure out. Obviously, anytime you can do damage without rolling dice is a big thing. I was really looking at Mystics damage, and actually, the teams I was kicking around a couple of ideas were use an entity as an actual character. The White Lantern entity is a character with the stop clicks and Mystics from the Phoenix Force. And all those stop regen clicks. I was really looking at stuff like that. And then eventually it dawned on me, I was like, oh yeah, we've got Bizarro. So I went back to looking at Bizarro. I'm like, the problem with Bizarro though is if he gets swarmed, he can go down really fast, Mystics or not. So what I'd actually came up with was, wait a second, Headpool, which is only 38 points, also has a couple of stop clicks. It's like, what if Headpool then takes the entity and heals Bizarro, puts tokens back on that? Well, how do you keep Headpool alive? And then when the Nurse construct released, I was able to do that and then use the Star Sapphire ring on both of them. It was a pretty brutal team. I went 5-0 in Team Worlds. I didn't even really have a close game. I blew out everybody with it. So it was a really fun team I'd come up with. I'm sure I could have played it in the finals, modern singles. But honestly, there were so many people that have been talking about you have to have an entity, you have to have a resource. I thought it would have been really fun to. Because what did you pay for the strategy game? You just bought it, you said?
Yeah, it's about 60.
Yeah, I mean, $60, and you get the JLA base complete right now for less than 30, about 35, 40 roughly. So I thought it would have been really fun with all this talk of people complaining about how expensive teams were, this or that, to win with a team at Gen Con. It would have been less than $100 to build, not using a resource and not using an entity.
Mm.
So that was kind of the mindset on that.
Now you did also pilot the same team you just mentioned, the Headpool and Bizarro, along with a power battery to in Dragon Con. You got the fourth with that one.
I had a couple of different team ideas that I was kicking around, but I mean the reality is that Dragon Con there were some good players there. Eddie Martinez was there. He's a good player up in the Northwest. I think he took second in Worlds last year. Yeah, took second in Worlds to Dan. Mm-hmm. Pat. I can't remember pronounce his last name. Yakubajawa.
I think it was Yabjoko.
Yabjoko.
He's never corrected me, so I don't know.
But Pat and some of the Majestics guys were out there. Kevin Afruz. You've got the Bob, which is a great player that came up. He's a good friend of mine. There was some really good players that actually came out to play in that event. But when it came right down to it, there was also quite a bit of inexperienced players that came out. Just like a lot of RLCs, you got the couple of good players and the other ones. And my thought was, when I came back from Gen Con, I actually took me like 26 hours to get home, so I got a free flight from Southwest, basically. So for me, it was just a financial decision solely. I know I've got this team. It may or may not win the whole thing, but if I can get in the top 2 or 4 financially, it's a good trip for me,
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what happened with it. I knew I could probably get at least top 4 with that team, and that's what happened. If I'd played anyone else but Pat in the top 4, I would have been top 2, but that's just the luck of the draw sometimes.
And a lot of his victory, you mentioned to me in a message on Facebook, was he won the map roll, which let him Lydia your ring away.
Yeah, he won map roll. We first, I think, rolled 5s. We were even. I rolled again, and he rolled a crit, and yeah, I rolled 2 6s, and he had me go first, and then he could steal my ring. If he hadn't stolen, at that point my team was pretty much defeated, because that's the whole concept. It was Mystics damage, and at that point it was Unshape Chain. So it was one attack on Headpool, then one Quake on Headpool, and Headpool was out, and that was pretty much game after that. So otherwise, he would have had a really hard time with the Pogs he was playing, because the Pogs couldn't have attacked. He would have had a really rough go on that. So
yeah. So what have you been up to since all the major tournaments are up and done? ROC season is starting to restart right now. Their current format being the no tactics format, no entities, no tactics. Are you looking to travel to very many of those, or are you just kind of chilling out?
Denver in October. It's October 18th, I believe. I think it's a 128-person one. I'm really looking forward to the sealed format, even though Guardians is kind of a weird set to have for sealed. So I'm looking forward to that. I've got my buddy John coming out with me, a couple of other guys from Salt Lake, and I think we're meeting a couple of people there. Should be a good time though. I really like that WizKids is doing events. It seems like the reviews have been pretty positive the last 2 they had. I just read last night again that another Captain Marvel team won, so that's twice with Captain Marvel winning. So I'm looking forward to it, though. I think it should be a really good time. Besides that, I'm really just doing locally. I'm mostly only play in events like bigger events or like stuff like War of Light or any sealed. I'll try to make it out to any sealed that I can, because that's the best way to learn characters, I think, is actually playing them and seeing them played against you, stuff that people might not play. Mm-hmm. And then besides that, it looks like January they're doing the next regional in California, so I'll be out there for that one. I still have more frequent flyer miles, so it's been nice to do that one for free.
Yeah, that's one of those things. Is if you have something like frequent flyer miles, you can keep the travel going. Plus, if you're successful in the tournament, sell the extras that you have to
Yeah, that would be the goal down there. And I know it's Pat's tournament that he does out there, and I think he's actually adding more prize money this time. He usually does $1,000. I won WonderCon last year, and it was a $400 first place prize and a bunch of White Lanterns, like the 75th White Lantern set, and a bunch of other stuff that I won. So it's that was nice. WonderCon paid for Origins, flipped a lot of stuff at Origins, which paid for Gen Con. Sold stuff at Gen Con, and then had the free flight to Dragon Con. So said I've been traveling for free playing Clix, just flipping stuff for the last year and a half. So hasn't been bad at all.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good life.
Go ahead, Mike.
That sounds like a good life.
I work for myself, so it's been nice. I don't have to schedule the time off and stuff, so I've been pretty fortunate that way. So.
Awesome. All right. So just gonna have to open it up now. Talk about the game as is. What we've been playing. What you've been filling with. I know myself. I've been trying to fiddle with a lot of the ROC no tactics format and learning all kinds of neat things that actually turn out to be tactics, like theme teams are tactics. So I'm losing a lot of. I'm throwing a lot of teams out. It's like, okay, I got theme team prop. Oh wait, no, I don't. Throw that out. I don't know. Have you guys been working around that format recently, or?
What I would have liked to have seen was when the ROC is in an interesting position where they can. I mean, it's their tournament. They can set the rules. I would have loved to have them seen no tactics, but kept named theme teams or something like that. So if you did build like a Justice League team or something like that, you could keep the bonuses. I think that would have been a fun format for them to keep, because then you might have actually seen someone show up with a Superman Batman team.
Yeah.
Stuff like that could have been pretty interesting to see, but they didn't want to do that, obviously. That's what I'd like to see. I know Brian Rupp's doing a tournament coming up in it's for his big event that they're doing in November. It's a 200 point. They're trying to create like a new format, which is going to be really interesting to see. So I would have liked to have seen the ROC kind of step up and do something a little bit different, more than just tactics, no tactics. I think that would have been fun to create like a completely different meta format.
Yeah, I actually plan on. I'm hoping, and if he's watching, then the invite is there to have Brian on next week. But yeah, one of the things that I find strange is that I know the ROC is trying to be all inclusive and whatnot, but they're also in that position to equally be on par and be the second level tournament to WizKids' own stuff. So I mean, it might be in their favor to keep it open to everything, but at the same time, because it's theirs to run, like you said, they're free to do whatever. I wasn't at the Dragon Con major tournament, but I read somewhere that it's multiple formats throughout the day. Like you don't play just modern everything. There's different parts to it.
Yeah, well, what it was is the way it worked out is if you had 200. Sorry, let's go back. If you won a Super Q, you got 100 points from to get you into the ROC. Heat 3, basically. The way it worked was Heat 1 cost you 20 ROC points to get into. Points were selling roughly for about $1.50 roughly per point, so about $30, which isn't much more than a regular buy-in, would get you into the first heat. If you placed in the top half of the first heat, you got into the second heat, which would have cost you 100 points, ROC points. And the top half of Heat 2 then they paid 100 points for the first half from top 1 if you kept from the first heat, and if you kept winning, you get into the third heat, which was 200 points.
Cool.
When I got out there, actually, because I said this was a purely financial thing, I had a bunch of extra points that I'd picked up throughout the year, so I actually just started selling points. I had a guy give me $150 for 100 points, and then I didn't realize after the fact I'd sold more points than I needed to, so I actually had to win my way in.
Oh boy.
So I actually just played the Justice League base again with the Gamma Bomb, because they did a Golden Age format, or I think actually the format was every carded set basically. So I ran it at 295 with a Gamma Bomb, just because I thought it would have been funny if I could have blown up someone's Despotellus with a Gamma Bomb, but never actually worked out that way. That was the goal. But yeah, it changed a little bit with that format. So the first one was 300 points, I believe, every carded set. The second one was, I think, 300, nothing bigger than a peanut base. But yeah, the format did change throughout the day, so every heat was different. And then when you got to the finals, it was back to the 300 points every carded set, and then the top 32 from that heat, basically. Or no, sorry, top 16 from that heat, they went back to 300 modern. So.
Okay. See, because one of the concerns I was actually about to bring up is if they were switching the formats all the time for all these different tournaments, somebody who qualifies in one of the Silver Age or their pre-April format, I'm going to call it from now on, is kind of not necessarily tested in other formats, right? So we'll have other events to run those formats as well now, which kind of takes away any kind of argument I had about it.
I think what they were trying to do is they'd like to see some people are really good in Sil format, some people are good in this format. I think they were trying to set up different formats to show like an overall type of champion. I won Heat 1, I won Heat 2, and then going into Heat 3, the first half of Heat 3, I think I took like 11th to get into the final 16 or something like that. I had a couple of bad dice rolls. But winning Heat 1, Heat 2 didn't prove that I was the top player in that format. All it really did was show that I could get out in the next heat, because most people, I think something like 11 or 12 people bought their way into the finals. Then when you figure in the top half that got in from Heat that, I mean, there wasn't really the skill test I think they were trying to set up. So I think they're restructuring a little bit next year. We'll see what they do with it, though. So it's it was fun. Don't get me wrong, it was fun to play the different formats, but I think that it could definitely use some fine tuning, I should say.
Well, I was looking at Jason and I were talking about the tactics aspect to the ROC that's going to be here next March. I think it's March 7th.
Yeah.
And he mentioned at the time that we were not going to be able to use theme teams, and I was immediately like, well, that's a little odd. But at the same time, it's a real challenge. It actually sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to restrict it further, because we've had a game element added this year. I mean, first of all, just let me say, this is my first year playing, so it's interesting to see the game expand in a way within my first 6 months of playing with the entities. So that adds another layer to the game. And then you have to strip it all away to be able to play in this ROC next spring. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I like that it's pushing people to look at other figures that may not have gotten a second look beforehand. We're also at an interesting time right now too with the entities, because there's figures out there that become way better than they should have been. But on the flip side of it too, though, there was a guy at Gen Con that was running Iron Pharaoh and Lydium Allure. That was his team, 190 points figures on the map with like 7 or 6 constructs on his power battery and 2 entities. He had 110 points off the map. It blew me away that somebody was willing to invest that much, off the map. And the guy, I think, took 3rd or 4th this year at Gen Con. So I like games about figures. I like the fact that was part of my reasoning of the JLA base is, look, I can put 300-point team base on here and another 300 points popping figures off. I have a 600 points now on the map versus someone else's 200, 225 on the map. So we're in a really interesting time right now. So I hope that the format really pushes people to try figures that they might have overlooked otherwise, because there's a lot of great figures out there, I think, that haven't really been given the chance,
That combination makes me think of Ion Triplicate Girl, which Patrick Joko used. And it's just like that figure wouldn't have been on anybody's radar without the add-on.
Actually, I took Triplicate Girl to WonderCon and did really well with it this year, playing it with the hammers.
Yep.
But then once the reaction limit came in, it really shut it down. Because second term, you now have 3 perplexes. You have 3 charge exploits, whatever you use with it. That's actually where Pat got the idea from originally. He told me that out there. It's like, I watched you play the Triplicate Girl back in March, but I'd kind of moved on to something else with her because I didn't think that she would hold up with all the Ophidian pulse waves out there. Because one big pulse wave, you lose half your team,
Yeah, well, and you can't even really use her in the ROC format that we're talking about because the 2 added-on girls are pogs, right?
Yeah, bystanders, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing, but there's no Phantom X's. There's a lot of stuff that's lost out because of that. So,
but of course, Iron Pharaoh isn't going anywhere on that format either.
No, Iron Pharaoh will be there. In fact, I think it was Heat 2 had actually put together a team. I'm sure you guys had heard about the carjacking, where my friends were carjacked out there in Atlanta. And I hadn't had a chance because of everything that happened to actually play test and build a team. So on the train ride on the way in, I was just looking at figures we had available to us and actually put together a team. And I actually ran Ion on Black Talon, Iron Pharaoh with Ophidian, Despotellus, Adara, and then the 25-point GCPD bike, because it was you could use entities, but you couldn't use tactics. and I built a stupidly good team with that just destroyed everybody. It was pretty potent actually. Again, just because of the Iron Pharaoh format, there's just so much you can do. I was actually using Black Talon to mind control and move the Falcon token twice if I needed to, or two pulse waves. And then I could actually also pull the Bat Cycle to just pick up my whole team and move it to another corner of the map if I needed to. So I'm sure you'll see a lot of hit and move attacks still with Iron Pharaoh. That's something if you don't play, you've got to plan against it.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to see Bullseye as well. Yeah, that's a pretty powerful combination.
It is. And it's interesting back to Gen Con because the Bill Bullseye teams were really, really potent. But the only thing that stopped them, basically it was kind of like a rock, paper, scissors, where the Bill Bullseye teams kills the Iron Pharaoh team. It just destroys the Iron Pharaoh team. The problem with the Iron Pharaoh team is it can do okay against some of the builds of Bizarro. But Bullseye cannot beat a Bizarro team. It can't do it because it's that big damage it puts out right away. It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I think that so many Iron Pharaohs snuck through at Gen Con was because there were only so many Bizarros that were limiting all of the Bullseye teams. I think if there hadn't been so many Bullseye teams or so many Bizarro teams, I don't think we would have seen Iron Pharaoh win this year. So
we'll probably see a lot of Bizarro too in the new in that ROC format as well. I'm thinking of trying to make a Proxima team to combat the Bizarro as well. Somehow make it viable, maybe with Black Talon.
Yeah, Iron Pharaoh was, Eddie Martinez was actually playing a Proxima Midnight team out there at Dragon Con.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty potent, it was a pain in the butt basically to get around. Another interesting thing though that's not considered tactics is constructs aren't considered a tactic. So any figures that you can put out there, you can still throw walls and stuff like that up on them. And you shouldn't see as many limits to the free actions at this point because really White Witch is the only figure that can do that. So using things like the wall isn't nearly as big of a deal.
Well, one of the first teams I actually came up with for the format was 100% Green Lanterns that could start with constructs, and it was the Guy Gardner, the giveaway from Morlight, and for the French viewers from Card of Magic as Geek Gardner. John Stewart played at the lower point value. He's 10 range still, and with the ability to use range combat expert, kind of gets over his 10 attack. And then I had Abin Sur, and all of them starting with some kind of construct. I had John Stewart starting with a wall. I had Abin Sur starting with a catapult, and I had Guy Gardner starting with crossbow, only to be able to free switch to whatever I needed to attack with somebody. Because one of the big things that's been driving me up the wall in the current metagame is shape change, super senses, and impervious are always rolled against me. It's my bloody nightmare. And by putting Guy Gardner on the team, he comes with precision strike. If you move him up to an adjacent character, he gains battle fury. So there's 2 roll-offs that you can't get against me. And if you don't have impervious, I don't need to use the scissors. I'll use a boxing glove because my movement was a free action and up my attack to hit you. So that's been one of my first plans, and the ability to switch and move around the constructs is just a big bonus on that team. And as well, I get the secondary attacker against John Stewart, and I got Abin Sur with the catapult. So it's like that's team 1 that I kind of want to run, but I have to pilot it, see how comfortable I get with it, and see how it does, right?
One thing that I'm really big on right now is mobility. I think mobility is people used to be able to position, and you see the barrier team, stuff like that, but I'm really a big fan of things like the 25-point bat cycle. In a non-tactic team, it doesn't hold you back. Mm-hmm. For 25 points, you get a figure that, if you need as an attacker, sure. If you need it for smoke cloud or whatever else, sure, you've got that option also, But for 25 points, literally, you can pick your team up and move it to the other corner of the map. So if you've got on the left side of the map and you pick up and you move it to 8 squares to the right side of the map, counting the moving it from one side of the bat cycle to the other, that's an 11 square swing you just made. And what are they going to do? Attack your bat cycle that's now in stealth?
Yep.
Smoke cloud. I'm a really big fan of that. In fact, I was really testing a team with the Invisible Jet, which I think the ROC, are they doing nothing bigger than a peanut base on that one?
Yeah, there's nothing bigger than a peanut base.
For Gen Con, I got a team that I just about took, and it was basically using the Invisible Jet with Iron Pharaoh. And what I would do is literally just, again, pick up my whole team and move it to the other corner of the map. When their Falcon marker got close, I would just move.
Hmm.
So, if you can figure out a team like that and to get something to move your whole team, pick it up. I mean, I think that's going to be big in this format. Because you look at Bizarro, stuff like that, Bizarro can't ever catch up to that Bat Cycle. He's going to have a really hard time.
No.
It's March. What's the date on it?
Ours is March 7th in Windsor.
Mobility.
It's a great figure, man. That is a great figure.
No, I really like it. I've got an idea for a team involving him and a nice little pit crew, and the blue recruit. I think that's kind of the direction I'm going in for the ROC so far. Anyway, still has to be play tested, but I think that the Superman from the strategy game is awesome.
No, that figure caught so many people off guard too at Gen Con because most people, well, one, they didn't know the strategy game was ever released. So I'd pop it off and say I was going to hypersonic. They're like, wait, you're going to do what? They had no idea that was coming. And two, most people have no idea what the dials are. In fact, one of my friends that we stayed with was actually talking to Pat, and they hadn't even seen the strategy game dials. Everyone at Gen Con seemed to think I was just playing the old Teen Titans bases, which aren't nearly as good.
No. Yeah, they're not. I had found they weren't as good as solo. When I first saw your team, I was like, "What? He's Justice League." Now you need the solo adventure in the modern meta with team bases. It's just not optional anymore. And I was looking at your team, and I was like, "How is he doing this with Teen Titans?" And then I saw in HC Realms that the strategy game figures were up, so I went over and looked at that, and I said, "He has to be playing with the strategy game figures. There's no way he's not, because that's really the game breaker on them in the modern game is." Those figures are way different than the Teen Titans and way more functional.
You talked about shape change and super senses. That was one of the other big reasons because of the decoys and stuff like that. Is why I was looking at that team base. Scott Crampton, who won Dragon Con 2 years in a row, he was actually out there, and he had a team that was pretty clever. He was playing Ellie Absorbing Man with Despitalis, Adara, and then 2 entities on Absorbing Man with a power battery and a bunch of different random constructs. What he was doing was he was able to give the sniper rifle and give Absorbing Man 10 range, and then pick up Pulse Wave from the power battery, basically.
Oh, dear.
And or not Pulse Wave, I mean from Ophidian. And so now you've got a pulse waving, a pulse waving Absorbing Man that's hitting you all over the thing. And the point was just to kill something. So we basically went out a little bit. I killed his Despitalis. He had his Absorbing Man down, and he pushed it to its good click. And then he didn't have his shape change rolls. And then I killed his power battery at one point also because he was playing. That's right, he was actually playing the white ring, so we could bring him back when he died. And completely caught him off though. He's like, in all of my play testing, you're the first person in probably 25, 30 games of play testing and playing this team that's actually killed my Absorbing Man because I didn't have to worry about the shape change.
Yep.
Interesting how stuff like that can really stack and make a difference. I think we got the Absorbing Man down to like only a 3% chance of ever taking damage when you stack everything on it. That's pretty crazy.
That's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. Not fun to play against, but I didn't design.
Don't work with ROC though, so you don't have to worry about that.
One of the things that really made me very scared of shape change and super senses. I don't know if any of you guys. Mike, you might have been around for the time. And one of Amber's game, my wife. One of her games at the Nationals was live, and her opponent had the Phantom Girl team, which was running around at the time. I think the guy, it was one of our local guys, was playing against Amber, and she made 7 different attacks against this Phantom Girl, and if it wasn't shape changed, it was super sense. And I think it was 7 different attacks got completely rolled off, and I'm looking at it like she's out positioning him, outplaying him, and he's just out rolling her now. So one of the big things I've been trying to do is include Battle Fury on my team, both A, for getting rid of that shape change rule, and B, to stop. Battle Fury is good in this game. Mind control is prevalent, and shape change is prevalent, and all of a sudden Battle Fury became a positive thing for all of its negatives.
Yeah. There's one of the things too that I was kicking around with tactics too for a while was I was actually looking at the with the 200 point, what's his name, the Prime figure, Hyperion Prime. And then I was actually, I was looking at him, and then I was actually looking at putting what the heck is it called? Like the Suit of Sorrows on him. So then you've got Precision Strike and Battle Fury and Hypersonic Speed and super strength.
Yep.
So picking up ultra heavy object, I was hitting people from 8 and ignoring, most of the defense that are being used right now. But I just couldn't get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time right now though, because Howard Brock mentioned to me, he watched me play one of the Bizarro games against another Bizarro team, and he says, you played really fast, otherwise that game wouldn't have finished the way it did. Because I'm a pretty quick player anyways, but he said I had no idea that the teams that would win or the teams that would do well are the ones that are really hard to kill right now, like Lydia Malore teams, and that ATA they put out is just stupid with her, where essentially she can regen all the way back up to her top click now,
Yeah.
pretty powerful,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Bizarro teams. There's so many different teams out there that are just a pain in the butt to kill, and I think that's kind of where everything's really shifted, which is interesting because a year ago, it was who could get the first big alpha strike in. Now it's how do you kill this team that can't die?
Yeah.
Type of format.
Well, this game has been shifting in weird directions every year. I mean, it's been a completely different year. We had the 1 year where it was play Metron with friend and try to win. And then the year after that, it was play Gauntlet on Tentpole, and what I liked about that metagame was there was a lot of different tentpoles, but it was still have a big figure with a Gauntlet, have some friends with it, and see how well you do. The next
32 teams that all had the Gauntlet on it in one form or another.
Yeah, and then the next year was Ghost Rider with belt with friends. Or there was a couple I noticed in the meta. George Masters' team was talked about a lot with Lex Luthor. And I think it might have been Ross, I'm not sure, but somebody had played a team with 2 Blue Beetles and 2 Scarlet Witches.
Yeah, that was Ross.
Yeah, and that would take a big hit against the Alpha Strike, but then you still got a game to play after that. And then there was just this past year, which was it seemed to be very heavy Iron Pharaoh. Either your team was hard to get to, hard to kill, or very fast, and I mean this because there's those 3 options. It seemed more wide open. I don't know.
The designers do listen. People can sit and complain about the game, this or that, but this year at Gen Con, again, I had a designer sit and watch probably 4 or 5 of my games. Watch them from start to end. And then last year too, that when I went with cop cars, they're there. Yeah, the guy had like a big old notepad taking notes, and at one point he looks over at the Brian Rupp and he goes, "Is that how this cop car team works?" Like they just hadn't seen it come together. And what they said, one of the quotes I read one time was, "It's the designers like to watch what happens at the big tournaments because then they can see how they need to change the game or amend the game." And we're completely different than we were a year ago. That the meta's completely changed. There's now limits to free actions, which I think they went a little bit overboard on, but that's another story. But there's limits to free actions. There's there's figures like science police officers out there. There's all these different counters that have come up now, that didn't exist a year ago, So where we'll see what go with this year, I don't know. I mean, maybe there'll be some type of thing where limits things like Iron Pharaoh, Phantom X type of teams. We don't know what's coming out. The Flash set, I'm really interested to see what they do with that one because that's going to be right after, because basically what it is, it seems like they'll come out with about 6 to 8 months roughly after they see something, win. Is about so Gen Con was August last year, and it was February when we started seeing the limits to free actions roughly coming out. Mm-hmm. February, March with White Witch and Agent 13. So it's going to be interesting to see where we are, 6 months from now, to see where everything's at. Well, it's an exciting time. I mean, people can sit and complain about it, but how many different teams are there at Worlds, and how many different resources? It wasn't all just the the utility belt this time. There was all these different resources that showed up. There was power batteries, there was Book of the Skulls. I mean, there was all kinds of things.
Well, I lost my train of thought.
And like you said, there was one guy that actually took that power battery into a 60-point power battery. That was
holy smokes. He took a 60-point power battery, but he had 2 entities, and he still made it to the top 4.
Yep.
About the way the meta's changing in the sets, and which sets have been really influencing that moreover. And we were talking about Deadpool and how there was a whole bunch of pit crew that came directly out of it. And I think our prediction will be that Flash will be similar. We're going to see a lot of really interesting kind of game-altering pieces for fairly inexpensive costs.
Yeah, And I wouldn't be surprised if the Flash set coming out has quite a bit of control aspects to it. Just because my only really complaint with WizKid's design, and this is just how I feel personally, is that working together wasn't that big of a deal originally, except for the fact there was no counter to it. Now, if you'd put a figure out like White Witch or Agent 13 in that set that could limit what could have happened in the set, I don't think people would have been nearly as upset about things like working together, originally. Uh, that's the biggest thing, if as long as they put out a powerful element, whatever it is that comes out in Flash, and there's a way to counter it, I'm completely okay with that. We used to see Kid Flash that came out, which was the answer to Nightcrawler. I believe it was Kid Flash, that could stop hypersonic speed.
It was Kid Flash or Kid Zoom or something like that. I remember
it was one of them. It's been years, so I think that was Brave and the Bold. But yeah, I mean, it's okay to have those powerful pieces as long as you give people an option to slow those down. I think that's what it is. We'll see. I'm interested to see what they do with the set, and I'm really interested to see how the game design changes things from this year. What's the next big hit that we're going to see?
Yeah, and one of the things that they're a little slower to do with it, like with regards to what you said with the hard counter, but they are paying attention to what their game does, and then they immediately make something to change that. Like White Witch and the Power Battery showed up to there was a big free action metagame last year, and like Ghost Rider pointed it out, as well as the team bases. I personally thought the team base cut was really harsh. They could have just kind of cut it down to 150 and it would have been fine, because then 300-point team bases would have been doing the same thing, and the 200-point New Mutants team base would have been about on par. Just you wouldn't have been getting 3 actions out of a single figure in a 300-point game. Again.
But I mean, New Mutants is still a really good team base. People sit and complain that it got hit hard, but look at it this way: Warlock is 164 points if you play him on his own. For 36 more points, you get the team base to go along with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I played against Kevin in Canadian Nationals, I mean, he pulled another team out of his team base to hit me with. So I was fighting against a gigantic figure in the team base and another team on top of that. It was probably one of the most stressful games of Heroclix I've ever played in my life.
How did you do?
I've said it a million times, and Kevin beat me by 41 points in that game. The last declared action was my attempt with a Black Lantern Batman to hit his copycat that I critically missed. If I would have hit, I would have killed the copycat and I would have won.
So they build teams that don't use dice, right?
Yeah, that like you said. And he spent most of the game poisoning me with magma.
Magma.
Yeah. So I mean, he wasn't rolling very much on that.
He was my matchup in top 32, and I was pretty nervous that day. It's my first kind of big competition, and I screwed up my Alpha Strike right at the beginning. One too many actions. It's just terrible. But he's such a nice guy. He was pretty understanding, and we ended up going right to time anyway. I was playing with a Weaponer Alpha Strike team with the Green Power Battery, and it was a great game overall. But yeah, that New Mutants team base is still crazy. I ended up defeating it the day before when Drake Conrad was using it. He came third actually at Nationals. I beat him in the second constructed qualifier, and ended up coming third as a result because I got some extra points as a result of beating the New Mutants team base. But yeah, it's still a really, really potent team base. I can't even imagine what it was like before.
Yeah, it was stupid before. I know Nick Peterson, the guy that won Canada last year, also won DragonCon with it last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something that just really caught a lot of people off. So.
And his build was it included Shatterstar with a utility belt when he won with it in DragonCon.
Yeah, because at the time it's back when you could place and then have another character. So Shatterstar could play somebody and then that character would still take an action. So I'm glad they made that change. That's actually what my team ran at DragonCon last year when I took third. I was using Batmite, Shatterstar, and then I was using the 80-point Iron Fist. So what I would basically do is I would, play Shatterstar and Batmite across the map, then call in my Madam Web for my support power because she can go anywhere on the map. Then that Batmite move, which then called over my Iron Fist, and then the Iron Fist would turn around and Heroes for Hire Flurry on top of that. So I was getting like doing 18 damage in a turn all the way across the map in your starting zone on turn 1 if I needed to.
Yeah.
Pretty potent.
It was, honestly, when I was looking through Dragon Con's teams last year, I saw yours and I was like, I love his team so much. Mostly because I like the Iron Fist and how he functioned, and adding on the Heroes for Hire made him that much more potent in that game. And for me, he was that min-max close combat nightmare.
Oh, that was a really fun team, especially with the improved movement and stuff. It just so many people were caught off guard by it, because that was what I liked about Dragon Con last year was it was right after X-Men had released Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah,
there were so many figures and things we just didn't know what was going to happen. In fact, Scott Crampton hit me with the something I'll never forget. On turn 2, nothing I could do because he passed first turn. He wiped my whole team out with Gambit and a Light Object. Hit my whole team.
I remember the first time I read that, and I was like, "That's not how that works."
Yeah, I questioned it too, and he's like, "Barry, like you got to be kidding me!" Yeah, I had never seen that before. I don't think any of us had ever seen that before. But up to that point, I mean, I beat a New Mutants team base earlier in the top 16, where I beat it actually on turn 3 actually, just by Heroes for Hire and flurrying the thing to death. I put it on its last click on turn 1. There was nothing the guy could do. Yeah. So it was, see, that's what I'm big about. A lot of people ask me how I come up with teams and stuff. My thing is that I always look for what I think is going to show up. The reason I came back to the Bizarro Headpool team this year was because of the Alpha Strikes,
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting at Nationals when I came up with it, because I was the one that came up with the double Shatterstar, Black Talon, Despotellus team. I really like that team. It's just too dependent on dice rolls. A couple of Blades, Flurries of 1, you're in a lot of trouble with that team. But I'm always trying to figure out like what I think everyone's going to play, and then how can I counter it. And that's really where my mindset usually comes from with that stuff. So it's been interesting to see. I know I'm having fun with it still, though. So it seems to be working for the most part. I've had a lot of success, so I guess I'm doing something right.
Yep.
You think you'll make Worlds this year, both of you? Ohio's not very far, is it for you?
Yeah, the goal is to get there. I'm hoping to be there at the very least. That's assuming I can get my paperwork done, which should be done by next month, I'm hoping, if everything goes the way it's supposed to go. And if, the hope is that I can do well if we have another Canadian Nationals. I gotta stop banging the table. If we have another Canadian Nationals, or there's a rumor flying around, I may or may not have heard from somebody who knows something who could be doing it, that we might get an open WizKids Open. So if I get good at it, there's a hope that I'm either there for Heroclix or Dice Masters. Who knows? I've learned the game very well recently in Dice Masters, but I'm pushing more towards the Heroclix. It's my favorite game, and if I don't qualify ahead of time, I'll try to qualify there. If not, I'll hope to get to talk to all these people I see across the camera while I'm there.
I think that's
the beautiful.
That's been the best part, I think, about this game is, literally, like, daily I talk to people from all over the world. I've got friends that play this game into Europe. I've got friends that play this game in Australia that we talk to. We have, like, a little chat, Facebook chat that we sit and talk back and forth with. Literally, I talk to people all over the United States daily because of this game. I think that's been the best part about it. I've met so many different people from, different countries, so many, different cultures. It's been really interesting.
Well, I even echo that locally. I used to play a lot of video games, and I went to school for video game design even. And I found that there was always kind of this lonely factor to playing games individually at home, especially if you're playing like a role-playing game that's not online. Getting into this through my local comic book store it's really great for the social aspect. It means you're out there, you're always dealing with someone one-on-one. And then talking about it, like what you were saying, with people all over the world, telling Patrick Yabjoko via Facebook about how I pulled 2 entities in one tournament, and his reaction is just golden. Yeah.
I haven't pulled a single one, and I'm missing one now. I don't want to talk about what that's done to me.
Okay, I'll just say it once. I pulled 4 in the last month, which is ridiculous, okay? Totally absurd.
I was
Yeah.
happy with one.
Yeah. Well,
I
I
have exactly 0, and I have 7, or yeah, 7 of the chase ones.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous of that for sure. But in terms of going to Worlds next year, I definitely want to go. A good friend of mine goes, Drake Conrad. So I'm hoping to at least hitch a ride or be able to share a hotel room to subsidize some of the costs. But overall, I as far as things are going for me now, I'm definitely going to be there.
That's kind of one of the interesting things though about Worlds. My first year going was 3 years ago. My first time to Gen Con, and literally I just was sitting. It was like 2 weeks before. I'm like, I should go to Gen Con because I've always done pretty well locally. I just want to see how I stack up. And literally I just booked a ticket. I found not even, I tried to post on Realms if anyone wants to split a hotel room, and not that many people knew me that were going. Nobody even responded to the thread, so I just went to the Gen Con forums, found some guy that I'm glad wasn't a murderer, and it was fun though. Went out there, but first time I actually got my butt kicked all day. The first probably 2/3 of the first day, it was bad. So many stupid mistakes, just nerves. You talk about your first big tournaments being nervous, and I was like, this is a wasted trip. And then finally I sat back. I'm like, wait a second, I can play with these guys. And literally, it's like once that light had switched, I went from getting my butt kicked and getting no points to actually winning. They used to do heats where you'd put 8 players in a sealed heat, and then whoever won that heat moved on to the semifinals. And I literally, as soon as I made that mental mind switch, I won my next game, or won that next heat. And then I actually was 3-1 going into the finals. You had to be a 4-1 to get into the finals that year. And I ran into Patricia the first time and completely overestimated her team or underestimated her team. And if I'd won, I would have gotten in the finals my first time to Gen Con. I felt pretty good with that. And then, the next year going out's when I won. So once you get over that initial hump of, you get the nerves settled and everything else, I mean, that first time sitting down, your heart's pounding and everything else, is that what happened with you guys too?
Yeah, for me, for sure. I remember first day, after I didn't place in my first tournament and I went into the second tournament and I'd relaxed and things went a lot better for me then. And then in the next day though, I woke because it's like 16 hours your first day. And so you're fried. And then the next day, getting up in the morning and going down and getting really excited, and then the timer starts and you start actually fighting, and I choked, my first one, but it was still so much fun to play anyway.
For myself, my first Nationals being the first big tournament in 10 years of playing the game. I've been playing the game for a long time, and also with the channel, I've started to link up with a lot of the higher level players. So I just recently made friends with George Masu. I think I just sent out a friend request that weekend to Jake, and I started asking advice like, what's it like? What's the environment like for this? I've never done anything like this. How do I do it? And George was like, treat it like a normal game. So I went in there, treated it like a normal game. Just some of my heroes happened to be there, and the first game against Kevin, who was a name I'd seen in the ROC mentions, and I think he placed top 4 in the recent Gen Con Worlds. So, I was really nervous playing against a name that I knew.
Yeah,
and then
4th last year at Golden Age. So.
Yeah, so it's like I know this guy's name, I know I'm gonna play this guy, but I got to go back to my versus. I had a lot of competitive play experience in Magic the Gathering and versus system. So I knew the first thing was to take a second, take it in, see what's going on in the game, and then go. And then, my first turn was always going to be my longest turn, and then I can start reading based on my opponent's turn what I'm going to be doing next. And I'm pretty good at predicting what my opponent's going to do next as well. And then after that, it's just a matter of reacting to the situations that aren't predictable. Like, is he going to make that shape change roll? Okay, he made that shape change roll. What was my next action going to be? It was going to be to do this. So I always try to keep a contingency when I'm on the board, which is why if you look at any team I build, you're going to not see me play one figure. You're not going to see me play a tent pole. I have 1,000 contingencies on my team that I'm hoping work, and then that's kind of how I react. But the nerves definitely hit me, but I'm familiar with it. And the first trick for me is to not eat. Because every tournament I go to, there's a level of nerves. I'm very nervous going into every tournament, and I know the second I eat something, my opponent's going to be wearing it. So I know I know that I have this tournament diet set up where it's just like energy drinks, water, and nothing, and then
Yeah, I'm still waking up this morning, so I wake up in about 5 minutes usually, so every
yeah,
day. But that's the thing though about it, man, is I think one of the things that really helped Pat, I think that I heard him say, or he told someone that being able to play in so many tournaments this last year really helped him out. Because he'd been to Worlds before, and I know he'd made the finals before, but I don't know how well he'd placed, you know. But then this last year, I mean, playing in so many different big tournaments and always being at that final table, I mean, that makes a big difference once you get that down, you know. With me personally, I just expect, like, I know I'm going to get in at least the final 16. I just expect to keep on going. You know, it's interesting. Last year at Gen Con, when we got down to the final 8, they actually had us all write what figure we'd make on the top of our sheet, who we would design. And that was the first time, like, at Gen Con, I kind of realized, like, holy crap, this might actually happen, you know? Like, I'm getting there. And after I got that first part out of the way, now it's just expected. I expect to keep winning, you know? It drives me nuts to watch other people play games sometimes where, no, do this, or, watch what they would do, but now I just get to the point where I just expect it, getting down to that final table. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting game though. Back to what you said about playing video games and stuff. My big game I used to love to play was like Civilization, which is a really fun game, but again, it's most of the time it's single player.
Yeah.
And when I realized I could play a turn-based strategy game with other players, with other people across from the table with me, that's really what stuck out for me.
Yeah.
I mean, socially it's nice. We actually have a friend that locally has a really hard time. I don't know if it's he obviously has some type of mental handicap, but he's a really nice guy. And he was completely scared of people. Like, he actually showed up to a venue one time he'd never been to that I was at, and he actually asked me if it was okay if he played, even though I'm not the judge or anything, because he was so nervous. And now you've got that guy that shows up, and he's got friends, and he's got the confidence to come in. It's been really good to see how this game has helped some people actually grow that way.
Yeah.
It's really helped them out socially. There's still some dinks, obviously, that you don't want to sit across from the table with, but for the most part, though, there's a pretty good community here. I don't know, how does this compare to Versus to you?
as far as versus, one of the hardest parts of the versus system right from the get-go is their big selling point was a pro circuit. So immediately went from a game based on comic book characters to a game based on numbers to try to get numbers. So one of the big things about this game for me was, in comparison to Versus, there was never a casual aspect for me. I mean, there was always the occasional time where I'd be practicing with my buddies, and we'd come up with a joke deck, and it might actually work or whatever. But as well, the game was way more cutthroat in all tournaments that I played in. There was never a guy playing a fun deck with a big smile on his face, like, I'm getting my butt kicked. Look at how fun this thing is. No, there's always that guy at the bottom is just always miserable. And sometimes it was me. I'm not going to lie, I was miserable in that game. And in this game, I find because of the nature of it and everything like that, it's a very different environment. The competitive environment there's still the moments of, like when I went to Nationals, everybody was across the table and knew, I'm here to win. Sorry. You just have to be in the way of that. But in bare comparison to Versus, it's a different environment altogether. Versus was 100% all the time, every time, whereas Heroclix is just, I want to kind of just play this game. I love this game, and I want to see how well I do in it. And because it's, I'm not being enticed by money. I mean, the only tournament for money is run by the ROC and the Dragon Con, and that's like maybe, right? So I feel less enticed to always do well. But again, I also run a show called Metal Lab and Metafix, and I gotta kind of play hard sometimes and show that I can. And I've been playing this game since the beginning. I'm only starting to enter competitive level now, so I feel like I've got a lot to prove with all my experience in the game.
So you're 13 years then, because it's been about 13 years, hasn't it now?
Yeah, it's hitting its 13th year, and that I was there at Infinity Challenge. In fact, Infinity Challenge came just after I got fired working at Games Workshop. So I was jaded, and I was like, I like comic books, and I'm angry at Games Workshop. Let's buy a competitor game. Because I spent half the time I worked at Games Workshop making fun of WizKids product, and now I've come full circle, and I'm probably their poster boy, with the exception of Attack Wing.
Yeah, I started at Legacy, so I'm about 11 years in now, so it's been a long time.
That's a little while. Yeah. Being in my first year, of course. But I did play Magic for a while, and a comparison that, well, there's a couple comparisons I can make. In this game, the hygiene is a little bit better, and the people generally are nicer and much more understanding and willing to help and willing to give you figures when you're first starting. Like, I have a care package just sitting over here for the next guy that comes in. You know, that didn't just come from me. It came from quite a few people. It's mostly CUR, but I think there's a couple of super rares in there even, you know, for people to get started with, because it is a tough game to. There's a lot to it. It takes months to really learn, and you need that kind of understanding, I guess, mentorship in a way, in order to really get into it.
You know, that's the thing. I've got a friend that's super intelligent, one of the smartest guys I know. He's going to school right now to be an engineer. He started. I finally, after a year and a half, I bought him a starter for his game and a couple of for the game. You know, Galactic Guardians, the first one, or yeah, Galactic Guardians. Bought him a couple of figures from that, a starter from the Avengers movie set, and he literally like just let it sit for like almost 8 months. I finally talked him into coming out and actually playing a game with us. And as intelligent of a person as he is, it almost took him a year roughly to figure out, you know, how the game works. And this is a smart guy.
Yeah.
You know, he would literally, you know, I'd see him on Realms asking rules questions and a lot of stuff. And then it was fun though to see by AVX month 4, he actually won Dark Phoenix Cyclops. So it was fun to watch this, you know, watch him come around completely. He wanted to play a completely different team, and I said, no, take this team and play it. And he second guessed me. I'm like, no, take this team and play it. And yeah, he actually he won that Dark Phoenix Cyclops. So
That's awesome.
Really proud of him.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's weird because I'm actually just at the butt end of a resurgence into the game, because during the NECA space where they didn't before when Topps owned WizKids, and then they got rid of it, like the Arkham Asylum said, I was just done for a while. I didn't buy anything. My buddies had just come over and brought their stuff, and I was playing with theirs. And when I was trying to kind of get back to the rules of the game, there's enough changes for me to go, wait, what now? And this does how many things now? And I'm just like, now that I'm back in it, I'm back to the level that I used to be. It took me 2 years to get back to where I used to be in this game. So like, if you have any kind of a space, there's a curve where you come back in. It's like, wait, what happened? How does this work? What's going on? What does that symbol mean?
And that's kind of one of the things, you know, people complain about mechanics, but I mean, like vehicles is an example. There's some vehicle rules to learn there. But
yep.
I told my friend when we started playing, I'm like, you can go as simple or as deep as you want to in this game. You know, depending on how crazy you want to get with your combinations, you can do that. Or if you want to keep it really simple and just running shot and, you know, shoot someone with Side Blast, you can stick to figures that just do that also, you know. I like that part of it because, I mean, literally I can sit down in the unit section and get lost for an hour sometimes, you know, just trying to say, well, what about this? What about that? What about that? And just start seeing how things stack together.
One of the things that scares me right now about the game is we're about to, until the next Modern Age cut, this is the biggest modern. Like even last year's seemed pretty large, but right now, going before the July cut, there's a huge stack of figures to have to know just for Modern Age alone. That's not including the idea of Golden Age or, you know, any other inclusive type of thing.
They've also cut back a little bit too on what they produced this last year. I mean, there's still stuff coming out, but it's not nearly what it was last year. I mean, last year we got bombarded with stuff. Yeah,
and last year's bombardment is what's causing this massive amount of figures to be in the metagame. And since I have this strange idea or feeling, WizKids might react to that on a level where they're going to turn around and say, look, we're having an earlier Modern Age Worlds, because they're moving it to Origins this year, right? The world.
Yeah, it's going to be at Origins.
Am I wrong?
June, which they usually do retirement July 1st. So that's going to
exactly. So I don't know if they're going to make the cut earlier, maybe in March or not March, May, or if they're going to maybe do it sooner than that. Who knows? But also, there's so many people qualifying on sealed because of the opens, right?
You know, and that's back to what I said earlier about the opens. I like the set Galactic or Guardians of the Galaxy as a set. It's a fun set. But man, there's some rough matchups in there. If someone pulls a 19 defense character standing and hindering, and you pull a bunch of 10 attack guys, it's a hard matchup for you. You know, it's a really hard matchup to have to hit 10s just to hit the guy, especially if it's someone like Tyrant that, you know, that's got probability control. You got to hit a 10 twice and hope he doesn't ignore the damage. You know?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then there's like Mentor versus a Black Order team, or just a Black Order team versus almost anybody else. It's crazy. Yeah, it's a good set though. I like the set.
There's some good figures in the set, but it's interesting that I wouldn't have picked the Captain Marvel uncommon to win the first two. It's a good figure, but I didn't think it was that good. I can't see it beating a team like a Thane team, but who knows, man? You know, that once per game pull swipe with Thane, if they're positioning right, could just destroy that team.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll see what happens going forward with it, though. But it's been interesting to see so far. I know Troma, a guy that I talked to quite a bit, he played in one yesterday, and he did okay on his pulls. I think he made top 16. He's on Realms quite a bit. He said everybody was having a good time, though, for the most part. He only ran into one Dink player, and he said the guy was Canadian, so sorry about that. But no, I'm just kidding.
Whoa.
Dink player we have up here? Oh, okay.
No, they were in Portland. I don't know where they were from. He just said there was one guy from Canada that was a little bit rough to play with. He didn't say who it was, so...
Rough to play with. I have a couple inklings on who it might be, but I don't want to name names.
Yeah, he said that he touched a figure or something, and the guy said you can't move the figure now, or you've touched it, so that's your move, or something. It was something like that. You know, the guy was arguing with him.
Really?
But that's a player. That's not Canada.
No.
So.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think that's an American-born Canadian, if anything, because.
Yeah, everyone in Canada is nice, right?
Oh yeah, we're all nice.
Shut up, Mike. You never heard I'm sorry so much about Canadian Nationals.
You guys have a pretty healthy community in Toronto, though, don't you? Clicks community.
Yeah, I mean, it's limited, but they're definitely a lot of very dedicated players.
Yeah, we have an overtly aggressive casual community. Like a lot of people want to constantly play casual games, so we've kind of broken from the game and created our own little meta game playing hidey hole of players, kind of like a underground fight club, if you will. But for the most part, if you don't pay attention to the way that our community acts on Facebook, we're a really close group. We like to talk to each other. We love talking about the game when we're there. There's a lot of egos as well, but there's, everybody acts different on the internet, if you ask me.
Oh, you mean your troll personality? Yeah, it's just what it's like online. But I think overall we're pretty good people, and we do support each other when needed.
Yeah.
You guys have one of the best players in the world from Canada, Michael Tran. He hasn't able to get out to Gen Con the last 2 years, but I think he's coming to Origins this year. I've talked to him. That's amazing. He made finals twice in a row, and he's had bad luck both times. He got DQ'd both times he made the finals.
Oh.
Once his ATA Thunderbolts card was tied up in his map, and he couldn't find it and got DQ'd for not being able to find his ATA card. And he got home and unfolded his map and found it. And then the second time he made it to the finals, he'd left his con badge in the hotel room, went back to get it, and got back at 10:02, and they'd already given his slot away.
Oh, that's brutal.
He's an amazing player. He's coming down this year. There's some good players up there. Patricia's up there. Rob Barzol's up there. You guys have a lot of really good players.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hoping to get my name up there soon on paper, I swear.
Let me know if you need any help with teams, builds, if you need to bounce ideas, let me know. So I'm more than welcome to help you out.
I'm slowly growing a strong community of people to bounce ideas off of. So I'm really being appreciative of a lot of the high-level players as well as the local players that I've had to just to talk the game. I love talking about the game. I love coming up with strategies. I love people picking holes in my teams. I wish I had more people to pick holes in my team for nationals because I would have loved to see that Weaponer night vision goggles come in and way before I got a chance to play against it on day 2. Maybe have some plans against that, or some kind of trick to something that might have helped me survive that. But my wife does what she can to help me play because it's great having a wife who plays the game as well and is willing to try the high level stuff.
You hear that, Megan? Play now. Right here.
Go ahead.
You asked me earlier about who helps me come up with ideas. For the most part, I come up with most of my ideas on my own, but every now and then, like Adam Furls, the national champ, he'll come up with something completely off the wall. Like initially, he gave me the Shatterstar Black Talon idea, and then I took it from that and made it into a team that was competitive, you know.
Mhm.
So sometimes Adam will give me an idea. That's why we work pretty well together, where he can give me an idea and I can tune it into something that works. He'll come up with the off the wall thing. So that's worked pretty well for me. You know, but it's nice to have those people to bounce stuff off of. I have Aaron the Atom out in California. I'll bounce some stuff off every now and then. I have a couple local guys I'll talk to stuff, you know, bounce stuff off of. You know, Jerry, Bob, you know, they're both in the southeast of the U.S. They're pretty good players too. I'll bounce stuff off of. It's nice to have different people in different areas though, because something that might be popping. That's why the ROCs are interesting. Something might be popping in Texas, might not even see you know, play it somewhere like Portland or California. You know, the guys in California had been using cop cars for quite a while. You know, they'd never run 3, but they'd run 2 cop cars before. So it was interesting when I got to Gen Con last year how many people didn't know what the cop cars did because they had zero experience with them. Where out on the West Coast, people had seen them play quite a bit, you know.
One of the things that I had learned very quickly about the cop cars is how they worked. We were playing a game with the table, what I like to call the table game, where just a bunch of people come over and we play Heroclix. And a buddy, the Superman set was still kind of fresh when the cop cars came out, and a buddy of mine was playing Superman, and he got crushed by a couple cop cars, and I was laughing about how they had kryptonite in the bumpers or something like that. But it was just like, that's how those things work. And then we hadn't quite readapted to the game with the ATAs yet. None of us have been printing them out. So, and you've been using the GCPD ATA to create effect on that team, and it's just like, wait, that ATA does what? Holy crap! What did he just do to the game?
Yeah, you know, it's funny that it worked out that way. I had a couple things change right before Gen Con. You know, ideas that we were working on for teams. The Shatterstar was changed right after I played it at, it wasn't initially on the watch list until after I played it at Dragon Con, and they saw me bringing Batmite with it. I've had a few things show up on the watch list because of that. But like I said, WizKids is listening. People can sit and complain and bitch and moan, but I think the game's still more healthy. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of Iron Pharaohs, but it's still way more healthy than it was a year ago, you know?
One of the things I know I got to say about Iron Pharaoh is his attack says he can miss. You know what I mean? He's capable of not hitting you, and there's a lot of work you can put into helping him not miss, which is what's making him successful. I mean, in the modern meta, you can put an entity on him, you can put Weasel next to him, you can put Blind Owl next to him, and all of a sudden his attack is very high. Mm-hmm. And he's still, but I can do the same thing I can say the same thing about a lot of characters. The difference is that he can sit in the starting area and hit you.
You know, and what makes Iron Pharaoh big, too, is the fact that when you put an entity on him, he gets a bonus for attacking characters that share a keyword with him. That's really what makes that character pop. Which, again, was back to my JLA base. Since he didn't share a keyword with him, I didn't have to worry about him getting the +1 attack and damage from that, you know? So it's interesting to see, again, to see how people are going to adjust from going here forward. That's one thing about the not frustration, but, we put so much time into getting ready for Nationals, and then Nationals gets us so ready for Worlds as 300 Modern, and the 300 Modern gets us so ready for Dragon Con. Again, the final is still 300 Modern. You put so much time, effort, and thought into this 300 Modern, and also you're like, all right, just kidding, guys. Now we're going to go back to this 300 no tactics type of thing, completely change everything. It's almost like the big build-up, and then you just put it on hold now for 6 months. There's the WizKids Open events are all we're all sealed. So we don't have any 300 Modern for another, until what, March, I think, is when they start again?
Yeah, April. April is when the
format changes.
Format changes, yeah. And that's why I've been referring to the pre-April ROC format, is because of that. Before April, it's not Modern. It's Modern with no tactics and no entities.
Yeah.
There's specifically no entities.
And so a lot of a lot of entity teams, a lot of resource teams, literally now are just, outside of your local game, but, locally, we'll have guys that'll play entities every now and then, but someone's not going to show up with entities and resources and ATAs and completely stack a team. We don't see a lot of that local play. It's mostly saved for, like, the big events, and now there's really nothing now for, 6 more months or so, roughly. So that's one thing that I wish that we could get more of. I would have liked to have seen maybe the WizKids Open do sealed and then switch to a constructed 300 or something at the finals. But
yeah,
I'm not the one to build that. To build that format.
They're still in their test phase of this open format. So they got to hear people like us say, hey, it's a good idea, but you know, it'd be awesome is if you also did X, right?
Yeah, you know, the sealed, because obviously they need to help fund them, and that's where I'm sure the sealed product comes into play.
Yeah.
You know, the Denver one we're going to, that's 128 players, that's 256 boosters that are going to sell, and I
Yep.
think it's just about sold out. So that's what, you know, almost $3,000 the store is bringing in roughly. That's a lot of
Absolutely.
money that they're bringing in worth of boosters to sell. But again, you know, I love the sealed format for a qualifying format. I'm not as big of a fan as the sealed format for deciding things, because there's that, you know, it looks like the last two have proven anything. Well, not proven, but shown. Those that pull Uncommon Captain Marvel are at a bigger advantage than those that don't pull Uncommon Captain Marvel. He's won 2 of them in a row, you know?
All right, so we're going to start wrapping up here. Mike, any thoughts? Any last questions? Or
Well, it's good to meet you. I thoroughly enjoyed our talk here, and I will probably add you on Facebook and try and pick your brain for team ideas in the future.
No problem. Anything I can do to help you guys out, you know, and get those damn passports. Come down with this.
I got one. I'm going to Rochester.
And your wives will both come, or?
Well, mine will when we come.
Well, mine will cheer from home. Yeah.
We're actually gonna probably start booking hotel rooms. So if you guys need a place to stay, well, you're married, so you probably want your own room. But if you need a place or someone to room with, let me know. I think we'll have spots available. So.
Cool, man. Yeah.
We've got a pretty good Facebook chat group that's got about 15, 18 of us in there, pretty active, that talk quite a bit. I can add you guys to that too if you're interested. So
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
It's I mean, we BS quite a bit, but at the same time, though, we also you know, it's nice to have people to bounce some ideas off. There's you know, the Australian national champ was in there. You know, Ryan Morgan's in there, Glass Cabinet. About 4 or 5 ROC Super Q guys. So it's nice to have people to bounce things off of. So yeah, I can get you guys added to that.
Awesome.
All right.
So, yep. You don't run any stores or anything you need to plug, or?
No, when I did the ROC in Salt Lake City, I just judged it because I get a chance to play in big events quite a bit. So I wanted to give those guys, you know, the other locals a chance. Which is funny. When I said I wasn't going to play, we had like 8 more people sign up. But I just wanted to give those guys a chance to play in big events. You know, locally we're really lucky. You can play Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, 3 or 4 places on Saturday. And this is just Salt Lake, you know, all within a half hour of my house. So it's a pretty healthy community here. You know, in fact, like I said, Hastings actually, you know, sent a bunch of WizKids product, and they sold out of the black and white lantern packs at the Salt Lake Comic Con. The guy said, we don't sell any products up in Logan, which is about 2.5 hours north. He goes, and you guys have cleaned us out almost completely. We're really surprised at the Heroclix community locally. So it's pretty fun, though.
All right, so we're going to start wrapping up. I just got to throw in our regular plug to Carta Magica. It's going to be running their live stream of Heroclix very shortly. It's Carta Magica, twitch.tv/Carta Magica TV. They run a live stream of their game every Sunday night between somewhere around 1:30, 2:30 start. It's fun to watch. It's just a usual casual game. It's also the shop where they ran the Canadian Nationals. So if you get a chance to watch them, give them a look-see. I want to thank again Jake, our last year's Golden Age World Champion, for joining us on the show. So thanks a lot, Jake.
You're welcome. And yeah, watch for Harley Quinn and the Flash set. I'm really excited for people to see that dial.
We're really looking forward to it. Mike, thanks again for joining us. Welcome to the team again.
Thanks very much. I'll get you to sign my Harley Quinn when I see you at Worlds.
Yeah. That'll be great. I have no idea how to sign that thing. What do you sign? Did you sign it your I'll figure it out.
White ink. White ink.
Yeah.
No, sign her boob, right?
That's good. I like it.
All right, guys. Have a good one.